Welcome to the Champs App podcast, where we help players and parents demystify the world of minor hockey development and recruiting for both girls and boys. On today's episode, I talk with Britni Smith, head coach of the Syracuse Orange women's hockey team. We talk about her playing career ending with her scoring an overtime goal to win the Clarkson Cup, her coaching journey, which includes 2 NCAA championships, and what she looks for when recruiting. This was a great conversation with Britni, so I hope you enjoy it. Before we get to today's amazing episode, I wanted to talk to you about the app part of Champs App. Did you know that there are over 30 NCAA coaches with Champs App profiles that you can connect with directly? These include coaches from every D1 conference. Champs App lets you create a free, beautiful online hockey resume to share with coaches, teams, and players. Your profile includes all the information coaches want to know to help decide if you are a player they want to keep on their recruiting radar. When you connect with coaches, they will receive automatic updates when you change your profile, add game or video, or alert them to upcoming games on your schedule. Just go to champs.app and click the sign up button to start your profile. You can check out the full list of the NCAA coaches using Champs App by clicking on the links in the show notes. I'm very excited to finally have on the podcast Britni Smith, who is a relatively new head coach of the Syracuse Orange women's hockey program. Hailing from Port Perry, Ontario, Britni played her youth hockey in the Greater Toronto area before playing 4 years at St. Lawrence University. While at SLU, she also played on the Hockey Canada under-22 team. Upon graduation, she played pro hockey in Toronto for the Toronto Arrows and Furies, and at the same time, she started her career as an assistant with the Toronto Varsity Blues women's team. Then in 2014, she joined the coaching staff at Clarkson University, where she helped the team win 2 NCAA championships. After 8 years with the Golden Knights, this past summer, she became only the second head coach in the history of the Syracuse women's team. Welcome to the podcast, Britni.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, so glad after 18 months finally getting you on the podcast. Hey, why don't we start you out like we do all our guests, telling us about growing up on a farm in Port Perry, Ontario, and playing on the pond, learning to play hockey.
Yeah, I think I've listened to a couple of these, so I think I have a very similar story to a couple others. But I actually started a year of figure skating, and didn't really take to that very well. So I had some friends that were playing hockey, one of my best friends. So kind of felt like that might be, the direction I wanted to go growing up on a farm with a pond, getting out in the morning and being out there most of the day. It just kind of felt right. It felt like something I wanted to be a part of. So it was pretty easy transition for me. I was happy to make the move from figure skating to hockey.
Quick questions. Did you have any siblings who played hockey?
I have 2 siblings. One of them did play hockey, but their interests were not so much hockey. So a lot of pond hockey for sure. Yeah, a lot of pond hockey with siblings, family, friends, home for the holidays right now. So hopefully our pond is up and ready to go.
Awesome. And did you find that actually even though you may not have liked figure skating, do you find that it actually helped you with your hockey because you were probably a pretty good skater?
I do think it did help. Obviously, getting to learn your edges and being comfortable on those is very important in the game of hockey. So, probably pretty happy at this point that my parents kind of made me suck it up and get that in for a year.
Okay. And as I understand it, you did try playing forward for a period of time, but you chose to play defense. So what was it about the defensive position that you liked so much?
I think it was actually just one of the teams that I ended up making. I was a little short on the back end, and again, being someone that, I was a relatively good skater, could make the transition easily to defense. So I don't know if it was so much my decision as a coaching decision, and I ended up really liking it. I like being at the back end and being able to see the play in front of you. So once I made that move in that 1 year, I believe it was my, bantam year, pretty much stuck with that the rest of the way.
And did you play with girls the whole time, or did you have any period of time where you also played on the boys teams?
I played boys all the way up until,
Okay.
grade 9 was my first year. On the girls' side in Port Perry, not a ton of hockey for girls when I was growing up. So started with the boys and pretty much played as long as possible, just until, size was a little bit of a scary thing.
Gotcha. And what did you get from playing with boys that you think really helped you playing when you made the transition to the girl side?
I definitely think it makes you play with your head up, makes you be aware of your surroundings and something that I think my, career was kind of built off of was my ability to make that first pass as a D and just having my head up and knowing kind of, what that play is and whether it's shaking F1 or moving a puck quickly. I think a lot of that came from the boys game.
Gotcha. So how did you end up at St. Lawrence University?
Going through the process, I did have a list of schools that I kind of narrowed down and started making my visits. And St. Lawrence wasn't even my last one that I had planned, but I ended up going to campus and, falling in love with the campus and building a relationship with the coaches, far beyond even getting to the school. It was just a place I felt comfortable. I remember leaving the university and immediately thinking, this is the place I want to be. So I think that's what everyone kind of hopes in their recruiting process, is that they get that feeling on campus. And for me, it was St. Lawrence.
Gotcha. And roughly speaking, you're about a half a point a game, which is pretty good for a defense player. So I'm just wondering, what made you such a good player at the college level?
I was very lucky to play with a lot of very talented players at St. Lawrence. My freshman year, that senior class had actually been to the Frozen Four all 4 of their years. So a very, very deep roster, which makes points as a defenseman seem a little bit too easy sometimes when you're able to put pucks on people's stick who can put it in the back of the net. So, for me, I think I was more of a passing player and just lucky to have those players that could finish.
Gotcha. And you also played for Team Canada, Hockey Canada's team for the under-22s, all 4 years, I believe, while you were actually at St. Lawrence University. How did that work in terms of you playing on both teams? Was it, during the summers or during breaks that you were able to play on those national teams?
It was for the development team, yeah. So in the summer, you had your 2 camps, your conditioning camp, and then your kind of testing camp, and then your tryouts. So those happened throughout the summer. So it didn't really interfere with college hockey. And then it was the Christmas break, the holiday break, that we had our championship. So not a ton of interference, and was an awesome experience all 4 years. Had some St. Lawrence teammates that were on the team each year as well. So had that, person to travel with, or comfortability there, which was awesome.
And did you have any aspirations to play on the senior team? And if you did, like, how come, how did things work out the way they did?
Yeah, definitely had aspirations. Ended up graduating from St. Lawrence and still being a part of the national program for 2 years. Never made a world championship or a tournament, unfortunately. But growing up, that was always something. Watching the Olympics was something I wanted to be a part of. And very, very happy with the way that St. Lawrence provided me that opportunity to be a part of the program and put myself in a position to compete for a roster spot. And in the end, just wasn't for me.
Okay. And what takeaway did you have from that experience? Because obviously, you didn't reach your playing goals to play for your country.
Yeah, as much as, definitely didn't make it to an Olympics or a world championship, I think it has helped define kind of my coaching career. I think it provided me with a lot of experience and opportunities to be a part of a program that just does everything, at the top level. And you play with those top players, learn from the top coaches. So I think it really helped shape my, my playing career, but also, really set me up for the coaching career that, I hope to have. And now, not being a player and being a coach, now I have aspirations to coach at a world championship or coach in an Olympics. So shifted a little bit, but, I guess same aspirations in the end.
All right. So the clock's still ticking on achieving your goal. So beautiful. All right. And the one thing which I was really impressed with when I learned about your background is the number of amazing coaches and players that you've been involved with, starting with obviously Paul Flanagan, who recruited you at St. Lawrence. And then, I know he left to actually start the Syracuse women's program while you were at St. Lawrence, but still you had Chris Wells and Mary McDougall, who's been on the podcast, and Ted, who came in at St. Lawrence. And then you moved to Toronto after graduation and played with some amazing players. Maybe just talk about your time in Toronto, both playing and then also working with Vicky Sunahara at University of Toronto.
Yeah, like you said, I've been really lucky to play for and with some amazing people, and I think that is a big reason why I've taken the interest that I have in hockey, is that I've just had great role models that have really helped build the love for the game that I have. So Vicky Sunahara, when I was in Toronto playing, I played for 4 years there, and I ended up coaching for 2 of them. And I was actually going back to U of T to take a couple courses to potentially get back into grad school for PT, and just needed a couple courses and ended up taking them at U of T. And I guess Vicky caught wind of it and just asked if I wanted to be a part of the program, and had never really thought of coaching at that point, to be honest. I was still playing, and it was kind of coming to the point where I kind of knew that for me, Hockey Canada wasn't going to be somewhere to continue with for my Olympic dreams. So I got into coaching, and Vicky, gave me an opportunity to play at the same time for the first year, which was really nice to kind of help with the transition as you're trying to decide, am I ready to hang the skates up? And I fell in love with it. I absolutely loved being around the rink and giving back and being on for skill sessions. And, Vicky was extremely fun to work with. She made coming to the rink every day a blast, not only for myself, but for the players as well. You could see it, in the energy every single practice. So, starting my career there, I think, really helped create the love of the game on the coaching side of things for me. And then my second year of University of Toronto, I actually decided that I was still playing, but I wasn't going to miss anything coaching wise. So I kind of made the shift a little bit, that I only went to games that I was not conflicting with my coaching duties. So my 2 years at University of Toronto, definitely, that's when I knew that I wanted to be a coach, and PT wasn't for me. I wanted to get into coaching, and then I got pretty lucky with the opening that I applied for with Clarkson the following year.
All right. So before we get to Clarkson, and but before we tie off on your playing career, one thing I noticed, like you said, is that in your final year that you were in Toronto, you played a lot less games, but you did get 1 point in the Clarkson Cup Championship playoffs. And at 1 point seemed to be pretty important. Do you remember what you were doing March 23rd in 2014 against the Boston Blades, maybe in overtime? Maybe you want to tell folks about what happened there?
I do. That was a really fun game. We had a great crowd, and went into overtime against Boston. And, from what I remember, they probably had a better roster than we did. And honestly, don't remember a whole lot. I think it was a pretty quick overtime, if I remember correctly.
33 seconds. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, being able to, I didn't have many points that year, but being able to get an OT winner is definitely something that, I'll remember forever. And, my time with the Furies, 4 years of just complete enjoyment. I loved playing with those players and being around them, and to be able to end on that note was just, it kind of made it feel right when you're making that decision to hang up your skates to end on a championship with people that you just love being around.
And that game actually took place at Markham Centennial Arena, and you played, I believe, your last few years for the Markham Stouffville team. So I'm sure you had family around. Was it were they all in attendance and watching you score as you walk off the ice to retire?
Of course, yeah, nothing different than most of my career. I was very lucky to have my family in the stands a lot. My parents, I don't think, missed many games at St. Lawrence when it was home games. If any, to be honest. And then, I had siblings who really supported me and were at the rink a lot. So it was great to have them there, and, a lot of friends as well, being in Markham. So like I said, the crowd was, a full crowd, but for me, I had some pretty important people in the stands.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, now let's move to your coaching, and then move into the U.S. college hockey. We had Matt DeRoche on the podcast a few months ago, and you spent 8 years there. Tell us how you ended up at Clarkson and what that experience was like, because all you did was win championships while you were there.
Yeah, so after my last year at University of Toronto, or my second year, I should say, that's when I decided that I wanted to get into coaching. So started looking at, what opportunities might be available. And, Shannon, Matt's wife at the time, or his wife at the time, had just had her second child. So, she decided to make the change, and that created the opening at Clarkson. So it kind of was just good timing, to be honest. It was a place that obviously St. Lawrence, 10 minutes down the road. I had some comfortability with the location, and it just felt right. And I had applied to a couple other places, but when I heard back from Clarkson, I kind of really focused and narrowed in on that one, and did everything I could to put myself in a position to get the job, and was very lucky, to be the one that was chosen.
Yeah, and Clarkson's become now a bit of a coaching tree with yourself at Syracuse, and Matt Kelly at Providence, and I'm sure there are many other folks who've played at there who are going to go on to coaching as well. So, who are some of your mentors as during your time, prior to getting to Syracuse, to help you in the coaching world?
Working with Matt DeRoche for 8 years, I learned a ton. Not only the X's and O's, he has a very good, hockey mind, obviously. But just how to run a program, that kind of looks to mimic a national team program. With Matt, it's all about habits and details. And I think that that's something that, in my playing career and my coaching career, I also really focus on, and I really think is important in order to have not only your team success, but your individual success. So I feel like we really, work well together, and I was able to just soak up as much as possible from him in those 8 years. Also work with Megan Duggan for the first 2. Obviously a very, very good hockey mind, and had an okay career, I guess, as well. So it was great to get to work with her for 2 years. And, she was still playing with the national team, and being able to hear, what they're doing and how they're teaching their players at that level, and adapting if you needed for Clarkson. But, I think that was a very good transition, helpful transition to have her right in my first 2 years at Clarkson. We're similar age, and we were both new, so we were kind of figuring things out together. And then, Tony Macy also, him and I, we worked really well together. We pushed each other and had fun together, and long hours sometimes at the office made a lot easier when you have people like that around. So, very grateful for my time at Clarkson and the people I was able to work with there.
Great. And so I want to transition into Syracuse, but before we do that, you, as you kind of mentioned, you have aspirations to help with Hockey Canada. You've already helped out a couple of times with the under-18s team. By the time this episode is going to air, it's going to be right around when the under-18 championship is going on in Sweden. Maybe just talk about your experience there and what that's like as a player to go and play for your country at such a young age.
As a player, like when I play development, you mean?
No. So the players that you're coaching, what that experience is like for the players that you were coaching.
Yeah, I think being able to, wear the maple leaf is something that a lot of female players grow up wanting to do. They don't have that NHL to get to, so that's kind of their pinnacle. So, I think it's what drives players day in and day out. So to have that opportunity, for a lot is a dream come true. And as a coach, to be able to see at the U18 level, that's the first time that they're putting on the jersey for many, unless they're in their second year. So, to see them put the jersey on for the first time, and what that means to them and their emotion, it's special. I really enjoy coaching that age group for that reason. Just to see, on their faces, a dream come true. It's something that you can tell they've worked a long time for.
Great. All right. Now let's get to Syracuse. So as I kind of mentioned, Paul Flanagan recruited you at St. Lawrence, and then he became the first coach at Syracuse University, and then he retired this past summer. So just maybe before we get into how you got the job, maybe we'll just talk about the school for a second. Yes, of course, it's located in Syracuse, New York, has about 14,000 students. Maybe just talk about the school, obviously very well known for both academics and athletics.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that's something that, really drew me to Syracuse was the academics, the athletics, and then on top of that, just the number of resources that are available for students in general, but student athletes specifically. It's an athletic department that just absolutely bleeds orange. When you're around the athletic facilities, you just feel, a sense of one team. And that's something that, really creates a family atmosphere and a sense of belonging that I really appreciated. And a big part of, why it felt like home so quickly for me. And that's something that as we're recruiting and having players on campus, like we hope that they see that and feel that. And we hope that that's part of their decision. That's something that Syracuse has to offer, and that is important to the hockey team, but the athletic department as a whole. And, I really do feel like that is a huge recruiting tool for us.
Gotcha. Yeah. And when I was growing up, I was a Syracuse Orange basketball fan. And Jim Boeheim, who is still the coach, was coaching back then. I believe he's coached for about 95 years. So are you planning to coach as long as Coach Boeheim?
To have a career that long would be awesome. Pretty impressive resume he has, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So tell us how you ended up being the coach at Syracuse.
Similar to Clarkson, it was just kind of right timing for me. Was getting to a point that I felt like I was ready for that next challenge, whatever that might be. And, Syracuse opening up at the same time, only, 2.5 hours from Clarkson, 4 hours from my hometown. As you can tell, kind of a theme here, comfortability is a big thing for me. Family is a big thing for me. So the opportunity to be within 4 hours of my hometown, an area that I already kind of had, prior knowledge about, it just felt like I had to explore it. Like I had to put my name in the hat and see what went from there.
Do you feel any pressure of replacing a legend?
It's funny because I get the question a lot about, replacing Paul, and it's playing for Paul and knowing, the kind of coach he is. You can't sit here and say that you don't, step into the position I am and feel like, can I replace that? So, I just work hard every day to try to bring my kind of vision to life with this program, and we talk a lot about making sure that we continue to play to what made Syracuse so successful in the prior years as well, which obviously a big part of that is Paul.
Gotcha. And last year, Syracuse won the CHA, but the CHA is not the ECAC. In fact, no team from the CHA has made it to the Final Four. So I'm just wondering, what is it that you're going to need to do to kind of not just get your team, but maybe even get the conference to that level where you're competing for a national title?
Yeah, I think that's probably every team's goal, is to get to a position where you are in playoffs and competing for championships at the end, whether that's a league championship to get that auto bid, or whether you're lucky enough to work yourself into kind of that top tier of teams that also get the opportunity if they don't win their league. So for us, it's just focusing on our process and what's going to make us successful. And I think, as the CHA gets another team back next year as well with RMU, it'll just be a matter of, creating a sense of compete, and a sense of, every team in this league wants to be able to push for that, that next step of being able to compete for that national championship. And, I definitely think that we have some strong teams in the league, and, Penn State being ranked right now as well. It just gives you that, we compete every weekend. We compete hard.
All right, so I'm going to get back a little bit more to the team and competing in the CHA in a second. But before we do that, maybe just a little bit more background on the hockey program in general. I know you play at Kennedy Ice Pavilion, if I pronounce that properly. Maybe just talk about the facilities. And what's really unique about Syracuse is that you are the only D1 NCAA program that doesn't have a men's team. I can give you a long list of men's team that don't have a women's team, but a very short list of just Syracuse without a men's team. So maybe just talk about the facilities and the training that you offer your players.
Yeah, I mean, not having a men's team allows us to kind of have whatever ice time we want, which is great. We can get on the ice for skills multiple times throughout the day. We have a team that really pushes each other. So, whether it's extra lifts or extra ice or extra video, we do a lot of that through the week, and it's nice to have the facilities to do so. As I was talking about the athletic department and the one team, that's something that is actually pushing some renovations on campus as well, is to create facilities over the next couple of years. They're coming in with a new player or student athlete lounge, an athletic training facility, a weight room. So all of those, which all athletes will benefit from, is something that we're really looking forward to. And again, it's another opportunity to have facilities that allow for all sports to be using and to be a part of, creating that culture of one team, which is really exciting and something we're looking forward to.
Gotcha. And now that you've made the transition from the ECAC to the CHA, what's been the biggest difference in either the playing or the competition or the schedule? What's been the biggest difference in your transition from one conference to another?
For me, not having to pack your bag and travel on Friday has been pretty nice. Playing the same team on the weekend, being able to, after games, get back to the hotel, get right into video. Players have more time to recover. Waking up in the same hotel, having that same bed for 2 nights. I guess playing in the ECAC and then coaching in the ECAC, that's all I knew. So for me, it's a big change, and something that I honestly think is really benefited our players, being able to spend more time through the week on them and less time on pre-scouting two different teams. So for me, from a coaching aspect, I think that's probably the biggest difference.
Gotcha. And let's just talk about your coaching staff. It's a completely new staff. Heather Farrell was a late addition to the team, and then Megan Quinn also joined you over the summer. Maybe just talk about your staff and how you divide responsibilities.
Yeah, Megan coming on first, obviously an alumni of the program, so bringing a ton of knowledge about not only the hockey program, but the university was a huge help early on as we were trying to figure out, what we wanted with our program and what we wanted our team identity to be. And, it helped with touring recruits really early on and things like that. So she brings a level of knowledge that, Heather and I are still trying to catch up with. And it's been extremely helpful having her on staff. Being a young coach, being able to relate with our student athletes and, getting on for skills and being able to work hard, but have them feel, comfortable and like they can just be out there and be themselves has been great. And then Heather, like you said, late addition, but she's done a great job just jumping right into it. I think her first day was Wednesday and we ended up playing, I believe, the next day on a Thursday. So she didn't have much time to kind of get her bearings before she was thrown right on the bench. So she's done a phenomenal job just playing catch up and building those relationships with our student athletes and, really integrating herself in the program as quickly as possible and really happy with our staff and where we're at and seeming as if, we're finding our groove and our routine now.
Gotcha. And have you divided up with like one coach focusing on the forwards, one coach focusing on the D and specialty teams, et cetera, et cetera? How have you divided that up?
We kind of have been jostling it a little bit still, to be honest, as we kind of find what our strengths are or what works best for the group that we have. I think we have pretty much settled that, Megan and Heather are with the D in game and I'm running the forwards and, special teams, it's kind of a joint effort, regardless of whether there's maybe one voice, for each power play, it's a joint effort, collaborative type, chalk talk behind the scenes. So I wouldn't say we've really divided it up, with responsibilities, whether one voice is a little, is heard a little more in one area or not. Really like just being collaborative, getting ideas from everyone. And I feel like that's something that helps us kind of push forward is challenging each other's ideas or bringing new ideas to the table.
And what's been the biggest difference between being an associate coach and being a head coach? Because now, the buck stops with you.
For myself, being a head coach?
Exactly. Yes.
Honestly, it doesn't feel a whole lot different for the majority of the time, if I'm being honest. Practices, things like that. Again, it's a collaborative effort. We're all planning practice, coming up with drills. Whoever's drawing up the drills is different from day to day, but I think the biggest difference is honestly this type of stuff. The media in between periods or after games, I think that's the biggest adjustment, something that, maybe don't find the most comfortable, but finding my way with it. And I think hockey wise though, it just feels like it's just a staff, we're all there just as much every day and trying to push this program forward. So, not a huge difference on that front.
Okay, and I know you're trying to establish a team identity and that like one of your philosophies is that you won't be outworked. How's that going so far?
Good. I think that was a big piece of the puzzle early on, was coming up with what our culture is going to be, what our identity is going to be, having all of our players be a part of that, our staff be a part of that. And again, talking about, what worked in the years prior and how can we keep that as part of our culture? And then what areas do we want to improve on, or do we want to be different? So coming up with those, core values that define our culture was something that was, a heavy emphasis early on. And I think that this past weekend, especially, we played 120 minutes of Syracuse hockey. So, when we talk about our culture, it's a process. It's always, we focus on it day in and day out. It's not a fancy slogan on the wall. It's something that really guides us and drives us. And, we just want to get better in those areas every single day. So when you're talking about, being the team that doesn't get outworked, consistency was an issue for us. It was something that, we kind of had to, 20 minutes here and 20 minutes there. And I'm really excited to start the second half with the way we ended, with a team that doesn't get out competed.
Yeah, so you actually led me right into my next question, which is you're about halfway through the season, but you still haven't really gotten into the meat of the CHA conference games. I'm wondering how you're feeling about where you are so far. I know you played Clarkson 3 times and probably didn't get the results you really wanted, but tell me how you're feeling about the team so far, and what adjustments you're making as you move forward with the rest of the season.
Like I said, very excited. It's one of those things that I think everyone probably needs a break halfway through, but I kind of wanted to be playing this weekend. I was just excited with how far we've come since September, not only with our team identity, but with our relationships and the way we play on the ice. There's just so many things that we've worked day in and day out to improve, and to see those improvements over the first half has just been proud of the team, proud of the staff for really coming together and pushing. So I'm excited for the second half, really excited to get things going. We have a pretty quick start with, Colgate and Cornell right off the hop. So it'll be a good test for us to see, what we've learned in this first half. Can we come back and start strong second semester?
Gotcha. And I'm going to transition more into your team and recruiting right now. So I notice you do have quite a few upperclassmen, but you do have 8 freshmen this year. So what are you doing to kind of get them the experience and get them ice time, given that you really do have a nice full roster, and how you're mixing it up and helping with their development?
I think that, a big shout out has to go to our returning players, our veterans. I think they've done a great job helping bring our incoming class along and showing them the way and making them feel, right away that they're players that can impact this program. And I think our incoming class has done a great job with, we have some on our first line, on our power play, on our penalty kill, taking advantages of the opportunities that they've been given, and really just working for those spots and proving themselves. It's fun to work with people who want to get better, and like you said, 8 is a pretty large class, and it doesn't feel as large when they're the ones that are pushing to get better, and it's not having to bring them along. They're the ones that are coming in wanting extra video, wanting extra work, so they've done a great job.
And I know you love to recruit, or at least you like to be in a lot of rinks, because I've seen you quite a bit the last couple of summers recruiting, not just in the US. I know a lot of your players are also in Canada, and you actually have a few announcements already in terms of commits for 2023 and 2024. So I'm wondering, what the recruiting has been like for you, and what the transition has been like now as you're a head coach, where you're really trying to close the deal with potential recruits.
Yeah, I guess that would have been a good way to answer one of your previous questions. That is one of the biggest changes as a head coach, is you don't get on the road as much throughout the season. It's not what I'm used to, and luckily we have the resources we do online that we can still see a lot of our recruits, but it's definitely different recruiting online. So even over the holiday break here, finding my opportunities to get out and see people live is very important. I think it's recruiting again is a joint effort. It takes all 3 of us. So whether it's getting on the road to watch, or hosting visits, or taking phone calls, responding to emails, I don't think I take a larger role than anyone else on the staff, and we all work to promote our program the same, and to try to get those top athletes on campus. And from there, like I said, hopefully they get that feeling.
All right, and I noticed you do have a lot of Canadians, but you do have some Americans. So if you had 2 equal, one Canadian and one American, who would you pick for your team?
At that point, like I said, it's all about the person, bringing in the right person to fit our culture, and that's something that drives our recruiting, is making sure that we bring in people who share those same core values and are ready to be a part of our culture.
Perfect. All right. So you answered my question of what you look for, off the ice from players. What is it that you look for on the ice? What are the skills that you look for when you're recruiting on the ice?
I think talent is easy to recruit. I think that it takes a little bit more to find the players that play, a consistent 60, that are working hard, that go to the bench and have positive body language. Again, as we talk about culture, it doesn't stop. Culture is always. So making sure that you're recruiting players that you can see their character and their core values and what makes them, you know, a team player within their game. I think that that's extremely important. And then obviously, like I said, you know, talent speaks for itself.
Gotcha. All right. So every podcast, I have to ask one goalie question. So a couple of things on goalies. So one is, how do you figure out who's a really good goalie when you're recruiting? Because to me, that's just really hard to do. I know you can have like goalie coaches, and I know you have Mike Murphy as your goaltending coach. But how do you figure that out? And then related to that is, it looks like your team is pretty full for the next few years because you already have one goalie commit. You know, what advice do you have for goalies who are struggling to find a spot in these days, given what's going on in the state of recruiting these days for goalies?
For me, recruiting wise, you know, being a defenseman, what was important for me with a goalie is someone who just brings calmness to the game. You know, makes those saves, that rebounds are going in the corner, comes up with the big saves when needed, but just feels like they're always behind you to make those routine saves look easy, or sometimes they make the big saves look easy. But a player behind you that, or a goalie behind you that you can trust, which allows you to play a little bit more aggressive in front of them and try to shut down offense a little bit quicker when you know, if you get beat, you got someone behind you to kind of save the day. So, you know, when I'm watching goalies recruiting, it's who gives that level of confidence behind their team. And then in terms of, you know, what's important, I think the biggest thing is communication for goalies. I think is even more important than forwards and D. As forward and defenseman, you play every single game. As a goalie, you might, you know, be playing first game on Saturday and second game on Sunday, but not the two in between. So that communication is really important. You know, if you have certain schools that you're interested in, making sure that you're emailing and saying, you know, this weekend, this is my tournament schedule, and then these are the two games that, you know, coach is going to put me in, so that if a coach shows, or an NCAA coach shows up for one of your games and you're on the bench for the 60, you know, it doesn't really give you a huge opportunity to be seen.
Yeah, so actually letting folks know explicitly
Yeah.
which games you're playing in would probably be really helpful. Yeah, any advice that you have for players who are either about to start the recruiting process next June in terms of actually talking with coaches, or folks who are you know, 2024s who you know, still haven't found a home yet? What advice do you have for those players who are kind of still going through the process and trying to figure out what's right for them?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, is it's a process, and everyone's process is different. And as hard as it is not to compare yours to anyone else's, I think it's important to, you know, trust that you're putting in the work that's needed if you are, and you know, the outcome will come when it does. And I think that, you know, oftentimes you get recruits that feel the need to speed up their process because their teammates are committing, or you know, change the way that they are kind of going because that's not the way it's going for someone else. So I just think it's so important to, you know, be true to your process, know what you want in a school, reach out to those schools if they haven't reached out to you, and just have that open line of communication. I think is very important. But at the end of the day, every process is different. So trust your process and stick with it.
Britni, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this, especially during your holidays. I want to wish you the best of luck, especially as you get into the back half of your season. I'll definitely be watching you and rooting for you. And then I also want to see, you know, over the longer term, what happens with your career, is hopefully as you help out Hockey Canada.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I really want to thank Britni for coming on the podcast. It was great to learn about her playing days, how she got into coaching, and sharing her insights on her plans for the Syracuse program. You can connect with Britni on the team's website or on her Chance app profile. Links to both are in the show notes. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Before you go, I wanted to share more about the app in Chance app. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know I spend a lot of time talking with coaches, parents, and players about the hockey recruiting process. One of the key questions that people want to know is, how does a player get noticed by college coaches? While there are many ways to be discovered, the easiest way to get on a college's radar is to send a coach an email and provide them all the information they need to assess if you are a player worth keeping their eyes on. That's where the app part of Champs app comes in. Champs app was designed based on all the conversations and feedback we received about the recruiting process, and we've built a tool to help players and coaches connect with a ton of the information they want to know. It all starts with creating a free, beautiful Champs app profile. After that, there are some pretty magical things that can happen to help make the recruiting process a little less overwhelming. Your Champs app profile includes all the basic academic, personal, and athletic information coaches want to know. Then, by including video, schedule information, and your coach's contact details, colleges can easily start their evaluation process. You just copy and paste your personalized link and send it to coaches so they can see your public player profile without even having to log in or create a Champs app account. Or you can connect directly with coaches on Champs app. More and more coaches are creating their own Champs app profiles and connecting with players themselves every day. Now coaches can have all the information they need to assess where you might fit in their recruiting plans. Even better, college coaches can track your progress throughout the winter and showcase seasons, because as you make changes to your profile, coaches will get notified to your updates. And in the future, we will be adding even more amazing features to improve your visibility to the recruiting process and hopefully increase your odds of success. If you want to see what a player or coach profile looks like before you start your own, look in the show notes to see some examples. My kids and I have used Champs app for their recruiting process. In fact, my son was invited to a AAA tryout thanks to his Champs app profile. So go to www.champs.app and start your player or coach profile. It only takes about 15 to 20 minutes to complete most of your key information. Good luck, and please let us know how it helped with your recruiting journey.